what it's like to have a fast-growing tech startup right now and how that might be different from previous cycles. And we have a great panel for this. So first we have right on my left, Lucy Guo, who's the founder and CEO of Passes. It's a fast-growing creator economy and fan engagement platform. The company has raised over $40 million, and Passes has paid out fees to creators in the 9 figures so far. Lucy was an original co-founder of Scale AI, the data labeling company recently bought by Meta. As part of that, you became a billionaire through the sale of that, so congratulations on that. And you're also the founder of Backend Capital. Yeah, that's right, that's worth applause.
Thanks, guys.
It's a lot of work to get there, right? Lucy's also the founder of Backend Capital, an early-stage venture fund with a focus on innovation and access, and you were a Teal Fellow as well, is that right? Great, well, welcome, Lucy. And next we have Alphonzo Terrell, who's the co-founder and CEO of Spill. Spill is a Black-owned social media platform co-founded with Devarius Brown. He's the former global head, Fonz is the former global head of social and editorial at Twitter. You left when Elon took over, is that right?
I was liberated.
Yeah, yes, welcome. Previously, as well, you were an executive at HBO, Showtime, and Sony Music. Spill has, in just 2 years, maybe even 18 months, reached 1 million in revenue, 200,000 active users, and last quarter was your first quarter being profitable. Do I have that right? So congratulations. Yeah. And welcome. So we're really excited for this conversation. We want to talk about building while innovating and predicting the future through rapid change. And one thing that I think is interesting is that you both have experience of building new innovative tech companies, having worked until somewhat recently at some of the defining tech companies of our time, right? So Scale AI and Twitter. And when you started these companies, when you started Passes and Spill, how did you want to build them differently? What did you take from your experience that you brought into the startup? And what were you like, this is something I want to try that's different from my previous experience? Lucy, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think from the previous experience, the things I brought were that you needed to be customer first, and you needed to be able to really do things that might have been out of your job description. So I, again, decided to hire young people that were really willing to get their hands dirty, I'd say. The first thing I wanted was a competitive programmer as my CTO, because I realized that competitive programmers are the best. They're just absolutely cracked. And it's true that when you hire A players, you continue to hire A players, but once your standard goes down, B players hire C players, C players hire D players, and that's the #1 way to kill your company, because I think talent is everything. If you have a bad idea, but you have a talented team, I think that talented team will help you pivot into the right idea. But once you hire people that aren't as talented, the standard just drops, everyone stops working, et cetera. So the #1 thing I did first was let's find a competitive programmer to hire as my CTO. I did that.
And how do you define a competitive programmer? What is that?
I would say if they were doing IOI, USACO, et cetera, and they were gold, silver, bronze medalists. Yeah, so really top of the country, right? Because then you know that that person is going to be interviewing your future engineers, and they're going to have a very high bar. So the goal is to always hire people that are smarter than you. I think after that, it was really hiring people that have been tinkering around with these AI tools, because I think with AI now, every employee is a 10x employee. I was talking to another company actually where they scaled from 0 to 90 million in revenue in 4 months. And I was like, how in the world did you do that? This sounds impossible. And their answer was that 99% of the code base was from Cursor AI. So they were really doing 1,000x employees, right? We've been using those tools, obviously. GitHub
It's
Copilot,
like vibe coding tools, basically?
Yeah, vibe coding tools. I would say the con is that a lot of competitive programmers are super anti-vibe coding. So maybe that's taught me we should be more vibe codey. But in every single discipline,
who knew? Only I think 5,000 would that be an applause line.
But yeah, in other disciplines, my strategy person right now, right? My strategy person is able to execute faster because he literally vibe codes these hacky applications that help him growth hack, that don't actually touch our actual platform. My counsel uses AI tools to automatically summarize legal documents and make points, et cetera. So every single one of my employees, I want to be a 10x employee now. My designers, they all use AI tools to generate the initial designs and then go in and edit them. But I do think that you still need to hire someone that has great taste, right? Only the best people in their fields are going to be able to use AI effectively to help to grow the company.
Great, great. I love the idea of great taste as being a filter for coders. That's interesting. So Fonz, what about you? How did you build Spill differently than your previous experiences?
Yeah, the first thing was really understanding the problem sets that you really couldn't solve at a scaled organization. We all are very familiar with social media, sort of the ills, the hate speech, the harassment, but also the lack of credit and rewards for creators, right, which has been a big issue across all the platforms, frankly, for a long time. And so we looked at, first and foremost, how do we build for the communities, right? Like, I think we get too confused these days by the media part of social media and forget about the actual social, right? How do I make friends? How do I make connections and find my little tribes or communities that can enrich my life? And I can't do that if I'm going on these platforms and being called any number of awful names, right? Being sort of buried in algorithmic bunkers that I don't understand. And most importantly, if I'm a creator, I don't know how I'm going to make money, right, off these things. It's sort of like a Las Vegas slot machine, right? So we started first with the hate speech and harassment, problem. I was like, okay, we know from the last 20 years of social media, if you don't start these things with some strong intention, it's gonna go left, right? In a lot of ways, it's like starting a nation. You need laws. And so we really worked with the best trust and safety experts in the field to really design the most progressive community guidelines, I think, that are in the industry. You can go check it out, spill.com/community guidelines if you want to. But the point was, we named that you're not going to harass Black people, queer people, women, immigrants, or just generally not be an asshole, right? Like, how about that, as like sort of the base guideline, right? You would think.
A novelty in this day and age.
What a radical concept. So we started there, and then we leveraged technology that we didn't have 20 years ago. We started building large language model AI for content moderation with the communities that get the most hate speech and harassment. And statistically, we have 66% less hate speech or violations of our guidelines that even hit the feed before people even see it compared to legacy platforms. And we're really proud of that because you just shouldn't have to think about this. Like, it shouldn't be a thing. And so that's number one, where I was like, let's start with that. And then the second thing was, let's really look at the communities that drive all the things we love on the social internet, right? When social media works, it's incredible. Right? I worked at HBO, and at the time there was a little show called Game of Thrones that would run. And
I've been meaning to watch it.
One of my favorite things was watching it with Black Twitter and people making memes and putting do-rags on the dragon and all this stuff. And I was like, this is this is what I want to be a part of. And so we started building around those use cases. Around essentially making Spill a meme machine. How could we allow you to express yourself in these dynamic formats in ways that you couldn't anywhere else? And then really give the communities the opportunity to create their own containers, right? Create their own spaces. So we have a function called a tea party, of course. Everybody in here should know what Spill, sort of leans into there.
Spill the tea.
It's Spill the tea, of course. And tea parties are really a way that, a product I wish I had at Twitter, where you could actually schedule a live group chat essentially around a piece of media, around a moment in culture, anything like that. So when Kendrick Lamar and Drake are beefing, you know where to go. It's on Spill. That tea party is going to be lit. You're going to have a blast, and you can stay connected to those people.
I like the idea of scheduling that, because aren't they always beefing?
At this,
we're going to do it at 9 o'clock on Tuesday.
Exactly. At this point, you got to be ready for anything. That tea party could pop up any moment. But again, I think those communities have always been popping on every single platform that existed. They just weren't built for, they weren't protected, and they weren't credited. So that's where we started.
That's great. I'm interested, we do seem to be at this moment where you almost said my internet, where the old internet is changing in some big way, the social web. The AI is coming on strong. I think, one reason that there's so much energy around AI is that, ChatGPT in that moment was fun again. It made digital technology fun again for just a normal user, which is interesting. Do you think that we're at a transition moment because of both the maturation of the social web and the advent of AI? And then if so, what opportunities does that create for you as a founder? Lucy, let's start with you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that being first to market is incredibly important. We actually created AI deepfakes of creators very early on in the company, but there was a lot of backlash, and that's when we realized that creators weren't fully ready for AI. There's a lot of concerns about their data being used in malicious ways. I think creators especially, they don't want deepfakes of them, for example, saying inappropriate things going viral and people thinking it's real. So what we've decided to focus on is creating tools to help them automate the like mundane parts of their jobs so they can fully focus on creating content. And that's where they're more comfortable with using AI. So I think we're the first really to help creators monetize efficiently with AI. So our AI right now helps them figure out the correct pricing for pieces of content to certain fans. It helps them automate A/B testing on captions to convert the best, et cetera, et cetera. So we're essentially building these agentic tools. So all creators have to do is upload content, and AI does the rest, which I'm super excited about. That being said, I do think the future of AI for creators is licensing out their likeness, because what AI does best is help humans scale their time, right, and be more efficient. And right now, if a creator wants to work with a brand, it's entire production. They might have to fly out and spend a week, and the brand has to spend money getting like cameras, hair, makeup, et cetera, and do editing, versus now if they license out their likeness, the brand spends less money, the creator spends less time, and they're able to just focus on like what matters, which is making content and growing their audience.
What about you, Fonz? What do you see coming up?
So first, completely yes, right? The old folks are clearly cracking, right? The old platforms are like really hemorrhaging, not just users, but I think the vitality and energy to sort of create new culture and trends and identities for people that they used to do. And so what I see that's happening now is we're going from the era, again, of more media to actual social connection and technology. In some ways, sort of what's old is new again. And for the 15 to 24s who are going through, the greatest epidemic of social isolation we've ever seen in this country, right? Like they're spending so much less time with friends. The health impact on this is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day, I think, from the Surgeon General report 2 years ago. That for them, 3 good friends, if they could make 3 new friends, it's better than 10,000 followers. It will change their life. It will help them feel connected. And we started seeing that very early with Spill. Communities, we didn't even build for this at first, right? I was like, all right, we're gonna do all these memes. It's gonna be hot and sexy. And they were like, actually, we wanna meet up in person. So to this day, there's ATL Spill, Spilladelphia, Silicon Valley, HGX Spill. They meet up in person. They get together and organize. They have little barbecues together, and they have actually formed like relationships. We actually had a couple that met on the platform, got married, got pregnant, and 6 months ago we had our first Spill baby.
Wow.
And I was like,
That's a meaningful connection.
and I was just like, that's the KPI, Spill babies. We're going for that.
I love it.
But seriously, I think that idea of connection and depth is really where we're going next. And I think you see it in the data where, for the Gen Z community especially, they're not using these platforms nearly as much as they used to. And I think our positioning and our bet that we're making is that we can use tools like AI and other things like that to do sort of the pre-vetting that a lot of those young folks need to do. Like they still go to the platform first to be like, can I trust this person? And then I'm gonna go to the party, and then I'm gonna go meet with them, or then I'm gonna go to this activation. I think that's really the use case and the opportunity to sort of, in the world where everything's gonna get more and more synthetic and the AI slop and all that stuff is gonna continue to take over, let's put a premium on connection and sort of that lifestyle sort of coming back through these platforms that we're building.
I'm curious, do you see differences in the way Gen Z and Gen Alpha are using your platforms? Lucy, do you want to go first?
I would say, jumping off of that, no, really. I think the number one thing that people on our platform crave is human connection. So, I think that the reason why the company was even able to be started actually was because COVID created this era where people were isolated and they wanted that human connection. So then Passes was able to have those fans be able to connect with the creators and feel that like emotional friendship, right? And we are seeing this across really. We've had a lot of our creators and fans meet up, which has been very cool to see as well. But yeah, I would say that everyone craves human connection right now, and that's the reason why platforms like ours exist. And I want to mention that actually Tumblr was one of the first places I met all my friends, because I had no friends in high school. So we would have these Tumblr meetup groups, and they did a very good job of that, where in different cities they would actually provide a budget for people to meet up and make that human connection.
Would the web have been different if Tumblr had stayed independent?
Stayed independent or kept the spicy content on there, I think.
Maybe that, maybe that.
I was on a different side of Tumblr.
Well, I think the point is that a lot of these platforms, right, we didn't know that that's what they would be used for,
Yep.
right? And I think a lot of the opportunity now is to sort of say, listen, it does have to be safe, right? You have to provide structures and trust layers and things like that. So that's a lot of what we're focusing on now. And I actually do think tools like AI are great for that, right? We have a product that's coming that we're calling Auntie, where basically you can talk to it like it's a best friend, like, hey, Auntie, I'm looking for, you know, the anime nerds down in New Orleans, blah, blah, blah. Can I, you know, do you have any recommendations? And it sort of facilitates that. I think those are the ways that AI can really unlock something that we haven't seen before, which is true efficiency in that connection versus like what it was on Tumblr, where it was like kind of by accident, right? Like you join a fandom and it was like, oh, these people are weird like me, cool, you know, like I think we can do a better job and a safer job of facilitating those connections for young people.
I'm curious, so what has the experience of fundraising been like in this environment? Because it's an interesting moment where, on the one hand, there are so many dollars that are going into tech startups and AI startups in particular. On the other hand, yeah, there is like the sense that this is a really competitive space and the big tech companies are coming in, you know, really hot. And so the, you know, it's both like there's a lot of startup activity, but there's a lot of competition. Talk about raising capital and sort of thinking about investors right now.
Totally. I'll start, I think for Black founders and folks who are from our background, like fundraising, especially in early stage tech, has been pretty treacherous, right? And it's actually been on the down slope for the past 5 years. I think less than 1% of all venture capital goes to Black founders. Talk about Black women who are actually starting the most companies in this country. It's even a fraction of that, right? So we know going into this, we're fighting an uphill battle. That said, you know, as an early stage company, we've raised over $6 million. We just closed our seed earlier this year. We feel incredibly blessed and privileged to say, hey, okay, let us prove this model. Let us show you when you bet on these folks who typically don't get access, you know, to these capital classes, it's going to over deliver for you. And then the next generation, as they rise up, can be like, yeah, look at Fonz, look at what Lucy did. You know, we can do it too, right? So I think that's really important. But the other thing that's been really interesting is thinking about alternative sources of capital too. When you are dealing with that fractional percentage of that marketplace, right, you got to get creative. And one of the things that's been amazing that we also did this year as part of our seed round was a community investment round, right? We opened up just a little bit of equity on the cap table that our users could actually invest in. This was something they've been asking for a long time. This previously, you know, most VCs are like, oh, get that away from me, you know, but for products, especially social technology products, it makes a ton of sense. Wouldn't you want to own the platforms that you are using to connect and build value? And you spend so much time on these things. So we've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars through that, and it really wasn't about the cash for us. It was about our community having a sense of like ownership and actually facilitating that growth and that long-term loyalty. So for any entrepreneurs out there that are struggling, I think about some of these alternative pathways to capital so that you can prove out your vision. VC is not the only way to get your business run.
That's interesting. And Lucy, you obviously are in the space of both raising for your own company and then investing in early stage companies. What's your experience been like?
Yeah, definitely. I would say for Passes, it was definitely easier because I had the resume per se of a founder that people wanted to double down on. So my seed round was really just a couple text messages, ended up oversubscribing at $9 million.
That sounds nice.
It was very nice. No deck, no name, no idea. I was just like, hey, I'm starting another company. What's the lowest amount you would be willing to write? And then I filled it up within like 2 days. And then the second round, it was just traction. Like the company was growing really well. I can talk about like what I'm seeing nowadays though. I would say that there's definitely an AI premium that companies are getting. Everyone always asks me like, hey, do you think this is a bubble? And I actually don't think it's a bubble. And the reason why is because for the first time ever, it's a possibility that you can have a unicorn with less than 10 employees, right?
Sure.
Because
I call them Instacorns.
Exactly,
you know, like,
Instacorns. Instacorns are happening because there are like 10x, every employee is a 10x employee. There was a startup that went to 90 million revenue in 4 months because their entire engine base like was just coded from Cursor AI, which obviously is going to be much faster than hiring thousands of engineers to do that. And because of that, valuations have skyrocketed, but I think they're reasonable because you're forward-looking when you invest as a VC because like you're investing at like a 30x valuation, but you expect it to be 100x, right, by the next round. So this has become a possibility because you can do more with less money and a smaller team.
Yeah. It's like one of those moments, right, where like, you know, it reminds me a little bit of the dot-com bubble where sure, there are going to be some e-toys, but there are definitely going to be some Amazons. And so like people are making those
And
bets.
I think it's just being smart about like which companies you're investing in, like are they defensible? Do they have proprietary data, et cetera? Like don't invest in skyrocketing valuations on something that's just built off a layer of a model, but if there's something unique to them, and defensively it can be anything from like network effects to, oh, this is just really complex to build by connecting all these models together. It's going to take like 2 years for another company to copy them, and they're just first to market. But because it's so possible now to achieve these like insane revenue numbers with such small teams and such like, I guess like actual spend or burn, it's just reasonable. And we're seeing companies like reach these valuations.
Yeah, so what does bigness look like for your companies? In other words, like, you know, a previous generation of tech companies wanted to be bigger and bigger and like offices overseas and more employees. And I get the sense that all kinds of companies, but probably particularly yours, don't aspire to that sort of magnitude just yet. Maybe the revenue part, but not the infrastructure part. So what Fonz, for you, like, what is your aspiration in terms of size?
It's a great question. I think the demand is there because of who we're trying to serve, and I think particularly some of the things that folks get wrong about when we say, okay, we're building for communities that typically are underserved, is that that's automatically niche or small, right? When we think about, you know, the diversifying demographics in this country, for example, but also when you go globally, you know, folks of color are the majority by far, right? So we need to think about this in the context of how many people are we trying to serve? How many people are we trying to connect to and then map backwards from that? So to me, the opportunity is massive, and I want this product to be, you know, just a normal utility for anyone that's trying to build connections and build sort of, you know, the type of network that everybody's missing right now, especially for young folks. So I'm after it, right? We want to go as big as possible to serve that need because I know so many young people are suffering right now, and I want to solve that problem. I know that we have the tool to do that. At the same time, like we just talked about, my new favorite kind of money is revenue.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you don't have to pay it back. Oh, it just comes in, it's yours. You don't have to worry about like selling parts of your company, look at your dilution. And we just had our first, you know, cash flow positive quarter, I'd like to say. And I like that. So I'm going after more and more revenue these days so that we can continue to support that. And honestly, you know, we'll continue to do our funding rounds as needed, but I agree with Lucy. There is a tremendous opportunity now with the cost of building falling to be able to serve larger and larger audiences without the infrastructure that you needed, you know, 10 years ago for some of these other companies. And I think every entrepreneur should take advantage of that.
Yeah,
I guess how I think about scaling a company nowadays is that our top creators are actually not LA-based, New York-based, et cetera. They're all over the like Midwest, for example. And I think that with
Was that intentional or no?
No, it just happens to be. And my hypothesis is that because they're not surrounded by all these distractions, they spend all their time just creating content. And the more content you create, the more followers you get, the more fans you get, the more people you have spending money. So because they're fully focused on that, and they may not be getting as many brand deals, for example, their entire time is spent creating content. Because we're such a relationships-driven business, and I think there's like platform retention, but there's also emotional retention. My ideal scenario is that in like these random Midwest cities, we have like one person that's a relationship manager that connects with the creators in person to help us retain that like emotional retention so people stay loyal to the platform. So I guess like how I think about building is that like in every single city we find like, you know, one person, and I think that like these AI tools will help these one people essentially like run their entire, like, it's like a mini office. Like one person can do everything in each location because of AI.
Yeah. All right, last question. So for both of you, you have these like interesting formative experiences. Lucy, you were a young gamer and you actually went on gaming platforms and sold virtual goods as a young person. Fonz, as a college student, you were running a student-run record label at Columbia. So what lessons about entrepreneurship do you carry from those days through to these companies today? Lucy, let's start with you.
I think the main lesson, and this has been like since the very beginning, since I was like hacking things, is you should just do things and build it. I think that too many people take time planning, I suppose. Figured out like, okay, like which product features do we prioritize? Like, let's design it perfectly and then let's build it perfectly and ship it with no bugs. I think what I've learned is that people, if they want to use something, if it's buggy, that's fine. It doesn't need to be perfectly designed. Like you can have to design it like 90%, and then if it happens to be working, then just iterate and make it better. And this is pretty much what I've learned through creating products throughout like middle school, high school, and Scale was just an API initially, and it was literally calling me via Twilio, and I was manually sending a call back. It'd be like, wake up and time to send the task back. And then with passes, we really, the platform didn't need to be perfect, right? And with every single feature that we launch, we don't spend months designing something then shipping it. Like most of our designs are done within 1 to 2 weeks, no matter like how large of a feature it is.
That sounds
and
great.
then if we see traction, then we go in and make it better. But because people will use a product if it has a ton of bugs and bad UX if they really want the product. Like there's very few products where it needs to be 100% perfect.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
Fonz, what about you?
3 things from my auspicious beginning running a student label at Columbia. Focus, speed, and courage. The courage piece, particularly with this spill journey, like, if I sat up here and was like, I knew I would start this thing and we'd be no idea, right? But the focus at the time when the layoffs were happening to be like, oh, one, it's time to build, right? There's gonna be a tremendous opportunity. The speed within weeks to, like Lucy said, we didn't even have a product yet. We just had a vision and a wait list, and to get that up there, take advantage of the moment, and then the courage to be like, all right, they might come after me, I might fail, I might lose my severance package, whatever, I don't care. I'm going to do this. I have to do this. I think that is something that I think all of us really need right now, particularly in this moment where so many things are trying to attack us and tell us that our dreams are not possible or we're not worthy or valued. So again, focus, speed, and courage. That's what I've learned.
Great. Well, Lucy Guo, founder of Passes, Alphonzo Terrell, founder of Still, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you.